Hey there, Mikey's crew. It's your old pal Michael, and welcome, sports fans, to another edition of Sports Talk. Today, we'll talk about Western Michigan continuing to row the boat strong as they went down to Champaign, Illinois, and stomped all over the Illini. Really, they ran all over them. Michigan escaping with a win over Colorado. Concerns maybe coming out of that game as well. Also, talk a little bit about the Detroit Tigers. They're fading playoff hopes at this point. And also run down maybe some of the surprises and some of the disappointments this week in college football. So first, let's actually talk about those. We'll go over some of the top 25 scores here. Alabama gets a win over Ole Miss 48-43. However, in this game, Ole Miss led at 24-3. And once again, they blew it. They flat out blew it. Ole Miss is 1-2 right now, and easily could be sitting 3-0. You basically could say they're the best 1-2 team in the country. And that's not saying much because they blew a big lead against Florida State opening week, and now they've blown a big lead against Alabama. And if they hadn't blown leads against both those teams, you could be talking about them being probably in the top 10 right now in the rankings. So that's definitely disappointing. How about a surprise? Louisville defeated Florida State 63-20. Lamar Jackson continues his run maybe toward the Heisman Trophy. Louisville has now vaulted itself into the top 5 in the nation in the rankings. I really thought they were going to go down. I thought, Florida State was going to come in and give Louisville a wake-up call, just simply because, the competition that Louisville had played, Syracuse and Charlotte heading into that game, I was thinking, they stomped over their opponents, but who have they beat? Nobody, really. But now they have. And they did it pretty handily over Florida State. This Louisville team is definitely for real. That showdown against Clemson is going to be big. And the way that, Louisville's been playing and Clemson's been playing this year, I give Louisville maybe the odds-on favorite to win that game. And then you got the showdown against Houston late in the season, which right now, Houston struggled last week in Cincinnati. And, they did end up winning 40-16, but they struggled to get to those 40 points. They had a couple of late interceptions that they took back for touchdowns to make that score actually look a lot wider than what it was. I know that, Houston beat Oklahoma, but Oklahoma hasn't been impressive. They didn't compete against Ohio State at all. So just thinking that matchup against Houston late in the season, if both teams are still undefeated, I think Louisville wins it without a doubt and runs away with it like they did against this game against Florida State. Talking about Oklahoma, they lost to Ohio State 45-24. They didn't even show up for their biggest game of the season, probably, biggest non-conference game they've had probably in a long time at their home stadium. Ohio State came in and blitzed them, bulldozed them, played great defense, had great catches. If you didn't see Noah Brown's catch, I suggest you look it up. Just go here on YouTube, probably type in Noah Brown touchdown catch, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But Ohio State, once again, great game on both sides of the ball. It's going to be hard, I think, for anybody to beat them, I feel like, this season, before they get to the playoff at least. I don't... I thought Michigan would go undefeated, but after watching Michigan play this weekend, it's almost kind of got me thinking, are they going to beat Michigan State or are they going to beat Ohio State? I'm not too certain about that. How about one of the dumbest plays of the week? Clemson against South Carolina State. Now, South Carolina State came into this game knowing probably they weren't going to win it. But one of their return men got the ball, and he was in the end zone, and he thought the ref would just automatically call that a touchback. Well, before, the ref could do anything, the South Carolina State player decided to toss the ball to the ref, who had not blown his whistle, who had not called it a touchback, and Clemson dives on it for a touchdown. So I call that one of the worst plays of the week. There was also 2 others, really. In that Oklahoma game, they actually had a touchdown that should not have been one. They actually took a kick return for a touchdown, and their kick returner decided to drop the ball at the 1-yard line before he crossed the plane. California, Texas had a similar play where California was about to go up 57-43 in the late stages of the game, and their running back dropped the ball at the 1 yard line. Now, that play was reviewed. The Oklahoma one, I don't know why it wasn't. But that California one was, and they said California retained possession because Texas did not make a football move to recover the ball. Now, if you watch the play, the ball is on the ground for a few seconds before Texas guy just goes over and grabs it and nonchalantly scoops it up. And I thought Texas should have had the ball on that play just because the guy did actually scoop it up. I mean, you don't call picking it up a football play? I mean, he held on to the ball too. So I don't know what they were thinking there. But I don't know what's up with all these players, dropping the ball before they cross the goal line. I mean, didn't they see the Clemson returner do that the week before against Troy? I mean, I'm just kind of thinking here, scratching my head, why these players do this. If I was the coach of a team, I'm telling my players, you're holding on to that ball across the goal line, and you're just going to go hand it to the ref. You're not going to do this dropping it behind you. I don't know why they think that's so cool or something, but, I think soon you're going to see a lot of coaches yelling at their players for that. I mean, even if you do it 2 yards into the end zone, it's like, still, why would you risk it? And, I mean, you saw it, I think last year was Utah against Oregon. Utah was going in for a touchdown. A player did that. Oregon picked it up, ran it all the way back the other way for a touchdown. So where Utah thought they scored, they didn't, and Oregon scored. I mean, it's just ridiculous that players continue to do that. How about Wisconsin barely surviving Georgia State 23-17? I kind of figured Wisconsin was going to be able to pull it out. Hornibrook now looks like he's going to be the starting quarterback. Bart Houston was pulled late in that game, and Hornibrook led Wisconsin on scoring drives on 3 out of their last 4 possessions. So it seems to be maybe Wisconsin's got a new starting quarterback, but we'll have to see. They play Michigan State this week. It's going to be a big matchup for them. Michigan State beating Notre Dame was a little bit of a surprise, although I kind of thought Michigan State could do it the way Notre Dame played defense, against Texas. And I know they beat Nevada, but that's Nevada. And Michigan State got up 36-7 before Notre Dame even started a comeback. And really, if Michigan State didn't start playing too soft on defense and conservatively on offense, that game would have even been close. Michigan State probably could have easily put 50 points on Notre Dame that evening, and Notre Dame would have ended up with 14 points in the end. You're looking at Notre Dame not solid on defense this year, it looks like. They could be in for a long season. Iowa getting beat by North Dakota State 23-21. I kind of thought North Dakota State was going to definitely give them a fight. To me, it's not surprising that they won, just simply because North Dakota State is the best team in the FCS pool of teams. So when any, FBS team has to face North Dakota State, they could be in for quite a shocker. Iowa was here as they lost 23-21. Now in that game, North Dakota State was down 21-14, scored a touchdown with about 3.5 minutes to go. They went for 2, they didn't get it. Iowa got the ball back but could not get a first down. So they punted it back to North Dakota State, who on their first play from scrimmage on their next possession ended up running. Their quarterback ran up the middle for a big gain. They ended up setting up the ball for a field goal try, which they snuck it in the right upright. North Dakota State walks out with a victory. Like I said, they're the best team in the FCS talent of teams. They could definitely beat a fair share of FBS teams. If they just beat number 13 Iowa, there's a lot more that they can beat too. There's no doubt about it. In fact, I wouldn't say in a year, not maybe a year, but maybe a few years, you might see North Dakota State becoming an FBS team, and that would not shock me. Big 12 is looking for expansion, I heard. Look no farther than North Dakota State. I mean, that's pretty close. And it'd be like North Dakota State would have North Dakota would have a big-time team in their state because they don't have any professional teams. North Dakota State probably is the biggest team in the state. Other games, Nebraska beat Oregon 35-32. Oregon, went for 2. They go for 2 a lot. They missed 4 2-point conversion attempts. They kick extra points instead. They actually win that game. I wonder if they will change up their mindset now for that. And like I said, now let's move on. Talk about Michigan against Colorado, 45-28. But the thing is, Colorado got up in this game 21-7 early on. In fact, Michigan had 2 passing touchdowns against them. ended up 3 against them in this game. Colorado's quarterback went down in the third quarter. I shouldn't say luckily he did, because I don't wish an injury on anybody. But for Michigan's sake, if he hadn't gone out with an injury, they might have lost this game, or it could have ended up closer. Their backup came in, didn't really do a whole lot. Their starting quarterback was running around on the field a lot. He was passing deep downfield for touchdowns. In fact, in the third quarter, when he was limping around, I was screaming at the TV at that point. He's staying in the game. Blitz him. Send the house against this guy, because he's not going to be able to scramble and get away. Instead, Michigan just rushes their 4 down linemen, and he gets a pass off downfield and hits their man for a touchdown. It made me so upset, because in that situation, you got to be on the sideline as a defensive coordinator looking at him saying, okay, their quarterback's injured, but he's staying in the game here. He doesn't have the mobility right now. Let's send the house against him, see if maybe we can't sack him, create a turnover, get any momentum going in our direction, because this was the start of the second half. Michigan came down next drive and scored quickly. Jabril Peppers had his first punt return for a touchdown in this game. That's all well and good. Michigan's offense still looked good, except for maybe Wilton Speight early on. Michigan blocked a punt. They had that return for a touchdown as well. So Michigan really had 14 points in this game come from special teams and defense. Wilton Speight early on, to me, did not look that great. Colorado pressured him, and Wilton Speight either was standing there taking sacks, he had a fumble that was returned for a touchdown, or when it looked like he was pressured and he maybe scrambled away from it, he didn't set his feet, and he would also be throwing into double and triple coverage. Colorado could have had a couple of interceptions in this game that they didn't have, because Wilton Speight did not make good decisions. In fact, I was screaming at the TV early in the game to get him out of the game, put John O'Korn in just the way he's looking. Now, if I was a head coach and done that, then I'm showing, my starting quarterback's not going to have any confidence anymore if I'm yanking him that early in the game. But to me, it's like he doesn't look good under pressure. He stands there and takes sacks. Or, like I said, he's throwing it into coverage. He's got to learn to either throw the ball away or find a check down receiver. That's what he's got to do. He can't be chucking it up into coverage, because if you do that against better teams down the road, Michigan's going to get blown out. And it could happen, soon against Wisconsin. It could happen against Michigan State, going on the road to Iowa, Ohio State. You name it. Any of those tough teams, it could happen against. Let's go on, or let's actually, before we move on, let's actually look at some of the stats from this game. I've given you. Wilton Speight actually, like I said, passing-wise, didn't have that great of a day. 16 to 30, 229 yards and 1 touchdown. He did not throw an interception, but like I said, he could have easily thrown a few in this game. Michigan had 168 yards on the ground. 87 came from Davion Smith on 11 carries. He had a touchdown. Chesson, 3 for 25 and a touchdown. Peppers carried it 2 times for 24 yards. Ty Isaac, 10 carries, 18 yards and a touchdown. He's got to be better. He should be the guy that can bruise you. Isaac's the big running back. He should be able to bruise you. And Chris Evans is a speedy guy, but he only had 4 carries for 10 yards. Receiving-wise, Darboh had the 1 touchdown reception. Jake Butt led it with 7 receptions for 87 yards. And let's go to the team stats now for the day. Michigan did control the time possession, 31-35. They did have the 1 turnover, where Colorado didn't. Colorado had 0 turnovers in this game. Michigan's got to force some more turnovers. They did a good job stopping them on 3rd down, as they were only 1 of 13. Michigan was 5 of 16 on the day. Michigan had 5 penalties. Colorado had 7. And Colorado only had 64 rushing yards. So Michigan's rush defense looks good. Their pass, it looked better than what it did, because they did give up some big runs against Central Florida, where in this game they gave up big passes. So coming into the game against Penn State, who isn't looking great so far, they do still have Saquon Barkley, although he got hurt. We'll have to see if he plays this week. If he doesn't play, Michigan might be able to shut down the running game, which means they can maybe key in on their quarterback. So we'll have to see how Michigan's defense does. I do expect them to play better. I think they will definitely be able to stop Penn State with the run. If they can shut down their passing game as well, Penn State's going to have trouble moving the ball, I think, all game. Michigan is a 16-point favorite, 16, 17-point favorite heading into this game. So that's pretty good news right there. We'll have to see, though, how everything, turns out. I expect Wilton Speight to have a better game. I think he's going to, this week, learn from his mistakes. He's going to learn not to throw it into triple coverage, double coverage. The offensive line also has got to block better. This isn't just, all Wilton Speight. It's the offensive line, too. They've got to also block better. If they don't block better, then, he's going to take more sacks. And the running game still has to get going, in my opinion. The running game still has to get going. And if it does, I think Michigan wins this game pretty handily. I would say 31-13 is my prediction for Michigan over Penn State this week. So let's talk about Western Michigan now. Rowing that boat. They continue this success. They go down to Champaign, Illinois. They were a 3-point favorite on the road going into the Big Ten, going into the house of a Big Ten school, which a lot of people might have actually been surprised with that was happening, that Michigan was a 10-point favorite heading into that game, or that Western Michigan was a 3-point favorite. I don't know where I got 10-point favorite, but they were a 3-point favorite heading into that game. Well, they really showed that they were. Now, early on like the first drive, Western did not look that great. Couldn't move the ball. Terrell's getting sacked. It looked like maybe Western could be in for a long day, but they finally were able to move the ball down the field and get some points. Jamari Bogan had a fantastic day running the ball. Western Michigan just did an awesome job once again running the ball all day. All over Illinois. Jamari Bogan had, I think, 181 yards rushing. Illinois only had 9 yards rushing, so Western's front line on the defense looks pretty good. I'm still a little worried about the secondary just because Illinois did have some deep passes that were not caught, that were flat out dropped, or they just missed their guy barely. That's what worries me a little bit, is their secondary. So we'll have to see if they can tighten that up coming up. They did have one interception, which was good. And they also did force a fumble on Illinois. It might have been a controversial fumble, but I really did think it was a fumble. If you looked at it from the side angle, it really looked like when his arm was coming forward, the ball was already loose from his hand. So it didn't look like that his momentum was carrying the ball forward. I think someone's hand just got in there and scooted it forward is what ended up happening. So on the day, Zach Terrell, 9-13, 150 yards. He did not have to throw the ball a lot in this game. Like I said, the running game was great. Bogan, 189 yards on the ground on 24 carries, 2 touchdowns. Franklin, 17 carries for 78 yards and a touchdown. And Zach Terrell carried it 11 times, 21 yards and 1 touchdown. Corey Davis led the Broncos in receiving with 4 receptions for 97 yards. Robert Spillane had the 1 interception. Darius Phillips had a kick return for 50 yards. That was actually, their opening kickoff that they had and where they kind of stalled out early on. Butch Hampton, 2 for 3 on field goals. He did miss 1. It did get blocked on the day. But, it wasn't that big of a deal in the end, I guess. Western, stormed out to a 21-0 lead. They ended up, Bogan got the big touchdown. Then immediately after, they forced the fumble, got in again. Western was up 24-7 at the break. They traded field goals in the third quarter. Illinois got 1, then Western got 1, and then Western added a late touchdown from Franklin or Bogan. By that time I was kind of we've got this one wrapped up in the bag, and we scored a late one, 34-10. Western wins over the Fighting Illini. Illinois, like I said, not looking too strong this year so far as they head into Big Ten play. Western Michigan once again controlled the clock. They held the ball for 35 minutes. Illinois had 2 turnovers. Western Michigan 437 total yards to Illinois' 315. Western had 20 first downs. The one thing that concerned me here, third down efficiency, Western was only 2 of 11 in this game. That is what concerns me. They were 2 of 11. They've got to be better on third downs. You've got to convert, keep the drive going. And they did a great job against Northwestern, moving the ball on third downs, keeping their defense on the field. They got to do a little bit better. But although they did stop Illinois was only 1-11 on third down. In fact, they were 0-1, 0 for 1 on fourth down. In fact, that was, pretty early on in the game. That was kind of a momentum changer, really, because Western's defense came on the field, shut Illinois down, didn't even get a yard on the play. In fact, they lost a yard, really. But yeah, rushing. Actually, Illinois ended up with less yards than what I thought. They ended up with 3 rushing yards instead of 9. It said 9 on the screen at one time, but they ended up with 3. Illinois had 7 penalties to Western's 5. Now, this week, Western takes on Georgia Southern. This is a trap game. They were all talking about North Carolina Central being a trap game. To me, it wasn't a trap game. You're coming in facing an FCS opponent. You should win. You should win handily over them, which they did, 70-21. I understand you had Northwestern, you had Illinois the next week, and you had that game in between. This game against Georgia Southern, to me, is the real trap game. You're coming off a big win against a Big Ten team. You're 3-0. You face your rival, Central Michigan, next week, who, by the way, is still undefeated, who may be undefeated going into the game against Western Michigan. It's also the MAC opener. It's a 7 o'clock game on the road. So we'll really have to see, will Western be ready for this Georgia Southern game? It's that last non-conference game. If Western loses, it only hurts in the loss column. It's not like, it's a conference game. But you still want to win it. That's the thing. That's why I'm saying this could be a trap game. But I'm pretty sure PJ Fleck will have his players focused this week and ready to go for Georgia Southern. The one thing that does worry me, this is an offense that Western will not see the rest of the season. This is an option-style offense, like what Navy runs, what Notre Dame used to run back in the day. An option-style offense, and Western Michigan doesn't really see it. And they got trounced by Georgia Southern last year on the road. Now, Western's obviously going to be studying game tape of their game last year against Georgia Southern. They'll be studying game tape of the games Georgia Southern's played so far this year. And they're coming into this game undefeated as well. So to me, it's going to be a really good game. I think Western's favored by 7. This game should run by actually pretty quickly if both teams run the ball. That's the thing. Western has got to control the clock in this game. Do what they've done their first 3 games against Northwestern, Illinois, North Carolina Central, and run the ball. You keep the ball on the ground. You get the running game established, and then you hit Corey Davis downfield, or you find Carrington Thompson, Michael Henry, any of those receivers. I think Western can run up some offense in this game. However, Georgia Southern's defense has looked pretty good as well. That's what I'm saying. You gash them early, then you hit them with the pass and control the clock. That's what they got to do. Now, the defense for Western is going to be key this game. To stop the option, you've got to key in on each player. So if the reason why they call it triple option is there's 3 threats. The quarterback, as soon as the ball is snapped, can hand it off to the fullback who's running forward, or they can run a sweep out to the side. Quarterback can fake it, take it himself, or pitch it to the running back. So what's got to happen is you've got to have your defensive line and linebackers keyed in on players. You've got to say, hey, you over there, you're keyed in on the fullback, you watch him. Hey, you key in on the quarterback, watch what he does. If he runs out to the side, you only go after him. You do not pursue the running back. Hey, you only stick with the running back, pursue him. If the play develops and goes out to the right side, you say, and you have one player over there keyed in on the quarterback and another player keyed in already on the running back, it's going to be hard for Georgia Southern to gain any yards on that play. That's what Western's got to do, is they got to focus. They've got to focus on the one player that they're supposed to key in on. As soon as if you're supposed to be focused in on the quarterback and you decide to go after the running back instead because, he fakes it, all of a sudden that quarterback's downfield for maybe 20, 25 yards and a big gain. So you got to stay on your assignments, focus on it, and Western could walk out with a victory. I think Western does actually walk out of here with a victory. I think they end up beating Georgia Southern. It's going to be a tight game, but I think they do win. I'm going to say they win this one 28-24. Is going to be your final score over Georgia Southern. Now, let's get you some Mid-American Conference scores And also, let's get you some Big Ten scores. I completely forgot to run down the Big Ten scoreboard. By the way, Michigan-Penn State game will start at 3:30. That game will be on ABC. And the Western Georgia Southern game, you can see on your Watch ESPN app or on ESPN3, 7 o'clock will be kickoff for that game. So let's run down the scores from the Mid-American Conference scoreboard for this past week. As soon as it comes up here, we'll have it. All right, your Mid-American Conference scoreboard. Tennessee held off Ohio, defeating them 28-19. Middle Tennessee runs away from Bowling Green, defeating them 41-21. Akron and Marshall played what looked like a basketball game, winning 65-38. Ball State demolishes Eastern Kentucky, 41-14. Toledo all over Fresno State, 52-17. Central Michigan pulls away late in the second half, defeats UNLV 44-21. San Diego State goes to Northern Illinois and wins 42-28. Kent State shuts down Monmouth 27-7. Western Kentucky scores a touchdown in the fourth quarter to defeat Miami of Ohio 31-24. Eastern Michigan beats Charlotte 37-19. And Nevada all over Buffalo 38-14. Now let's run down the Big Ten scoreboard from this past week. You've already heard, obviously, Wisconsin won, Iowa lost, Michigan won, Michigan State won, Ohio State won. However, there were some, Nebraska won, obviously. I said that, 35-32, but there were a few other games. Rutgers defeats New Mexico 37-28, got down 21-0 in that game, too. Penn State avenges their loss to Temple from last year, defeating them 34-27. Maryland in double overtime defeats Central Florida 30-24, and Northwestern gets their first win of the season as they end up defeating Duke 24-13. So that was your Big Ten and Mid-American Conference scoreboard from this past week. Now let's quickly talk about the Detroit Tigers. Do they have any shot at the playoffs? You're probably wondering. They're 2.5 games out. They did not play last night, and unfortunately the teams that they're chasing ended up winning. So they're right now currently sitting 2.5 games out of the wild card spot. The division race is completely done. There's no way they're coming back to win that and try to overtake Cleveland. They're 7 games back right now. It's not going to happen. They had their big chance against this weekend against Cleveland to make some ground up on them. They played 3 games against them. They only won 1, and it was the one on Sunday. So it was the one that was really too late to really win. They had a chance Saturday, but they lost 1-0 in extra innings, and they lost 11-4 the night before. And in fact, against the Twins earlier in the same week, they did not play that well against them. I think they actually ended up splitting that series. I think they ended up going like 2-2 against the Twins that week. So guess who they're playing again? They're playing the Twins. It's on the road. They've been beating the Twins pretty handily this year. We'll have to see if that actually keeps up. Hopefully it does. But yeah, they ended up splitting that 4-game series against the Twins. And then they only won 1 against Cleveland. So my projections obviously were really bad. They still have a 4-game series against Cleveland. So it's possible they can trim it all the way down to 3 games if, say, it were to stay 7 games at this point. But it'd be 3 with 3 to play is what it would be. So they're going to have help in between there. They've got a 3-game series against Minnesota and a 3-game series against Kansas City coming up. The Kansas City series is home, and the Cleveland series is home as well. So they'll have 7. That's their last 7 home games, and they go on the road to face Atlanta. Now, the Tigers, 2.5 back, playing Minnesota, playing Atlanta, you got to win all 6 of those games. You're playing against teams that aren't playing for anything at this time of the season. Yeah, they might be playing to play spoiler, but they're not really playing for anything else. So you got to beat Minnesota, you got to beat Atlanta. Kansas City, they're really kind of in that area now where they can't really gain any ground for the wild card. So I think that, they've got to do the same thing as Kansas City and take them down. It's that series against Cleveland that's really going to matter. Although, like I said, it doesn't matter too much at this point because they only won 1 against Cleveland over the weekend. So in your 3-game series against Minnesota, you have, starting tonight, it's at 8:10 for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. and then at home against Kansas City on Friday at 7:10, 1:05 Saturday against Kansas City, and then Sunday is a 1:10 start. So you got Boyd pitching tonight, which he's pitched okay. I think they do have the chance to win for him. Sanchez goes Wednesday. I mean, it's the Twins. He might have a shot. And then Verlander goes Thursday. I think they win for Verlander, I hope. Fulmer, it's kind of, his dominance has kind of died down a little bit, but then the Tigers aren't scoring for Fulmer, so that's what happens. And that's against Kansas City. Norris on Saturday, and then Boyd again on Sunday. So that's who the Tigers are sending to the mound. I say they win 2 out of 3 against the Twins, and I say that they win maybe, I'm going to say they ended up getting 2 out of 3 against the Royals. I think Norris has been pitching well. I think they have a good chance, but they got to score runs. That's the thing. They got to score runs to do it. So we'll see if they can. So basically what I'm saying this week, hey, they played 6 games. They're going to win 4. They're going to go 4-2. Maybe it puts them a game and a half, game back of the wild card. We'll have to see. So thank you for watching this edition of Sports Talk. Drop a thumbs up on this video if you enjoyed it. Offer up any of your predictions for the weekend in the comment section below for any teams. Could be any teams I talked about or teams I didn't even talk about. Also, thank you for watching and thank you for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed to my channel for more content. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Those links are in the description below. And this is Mike Loudon. Over and out. Talk to you again later. Mikey's crew, you guys, simply the best. Take care. I almost completely forgot to mention the NFL scores from this past week. I didn't get a chance to see any of the games, so I'm not going to analyze like the Denver game or the Detroit game. Although I know Detroit had 3 touchdowns called back due to penalties. That is bad. That's why you lose. That's why the Lions lose. They find new ways to lose every single week, it seems. But anyways, I'll just run down the scoreboard really quick. I know Denver had a couple of turnovers. Or not, they forced Indianapolis to have a couple turnovers in their game to defeat Indy. Von Miller had a strip sack and Aqib Talib had an interception return for a touchdown. So I know they had some great play on their defense. Otherwise, that's all my analysis I can give you. So let's just run down the scoreboard. Jets defeated the Bills Thursday night 37-31. Cowboys beat the Redskins 27-23. The Giants are 2-0 as they beat the 0-2 Saints now 16-13. Browns had a 20-2 lead after the first quarter against the Ravens. They lost 25-20. Patriots win 31-24. Jimmy Garoppolo goes down with an injury, and Patriots were up actually like 31-3 at one point on the Dolphins. Titans come back to defeat the Lions 16-15. Panthers all over the 49ers 46-27. Steelers beat the Bengals 24-16. Texans avenged their playoff loss to the Chiefs, beating them 19-12. Arizona blows out Tampa Bay 40-7. Los Angeles Rams return to LA. First home game, I think since '94 is what they said. Their Rams win 9-3. Denver shuts down the Colts 34-20, forcing, like I said, a couple of turnovers. Falcons defeat the Raiders 35-28. Chargers all over the Jaguars 38-14. Vikings squeak past the Packers 17-14. And Carson Wentz is 2-0 as the Eagles defeat the Bears 29-14. Fifth quarterback in NFL history to win his first 2 rookie starts. So, once again, Michael Loudon over and out.